This was a fun floor to do. What looks pretty complicated and provides dramatic results is actually pretty simple to lay out. What starts as a basic grid pattern is then transformed by adding in the borders around each of the individual squares. To start the process, a diamond grinder was used to flatten the surface before the floor was installed. The whole system that's been installed here is no more than 25 mils, which is only about the thickness of a credit card. But when the material is applied as a resinous product, it's going to flow over and around any undulations or elevation inequalities in the floor. So the diamond grinding is helping to smooth the substrate so that when the material is poured upon it, it's going to look more flat as it does now, which if it didn't, it would detract from the final finish. Once the surface was diamond ground and vacuumed clean 3 times to get all the fine dust removed, then the grid pattern could be laid out. What starts as a basic grid pattern is then transformed by adding in the borders around each of the individual squares. Once the borders are created and the 45s are put in from corner to corner, it's time to tape off the tiles. This is a straightforward process of taping along the lines and then pressing the tape firmly against the ground so that it protects against any leaks from the material when it's applied. Once all the taping is complete, it's time to install the first coat of polyaspartic. The polyaspartic being used is tinted to a gray color so it matches the gray flake that's going to be installed for that portion of the tile. It's then a matter of waiting 30-45 minutes, in this case 45 minutes, to pull the tape. The idea is to pull the tape when the material still has some pliability, but not so wet that it oozes once the tape is pulled. What's trying to be avoided is having any of the material that was held back by the tape still in a low viscosity state, flowing over the area that was previously protected by that protective tape. Once the tape is pulled, it's then a matter of waiting long enough for the material to cure to the extent that it can be vacuumed. Once the excess flake is removed, it's time to then tape off for the next color. Similar to the gray tile, the navy is installed the same way. The base color is tinted to match as closely as possible to the navy flake. It's applied by roller, and then the flake is dropped into the wet material. For the same reason as with the gray, the material is tinted so that anywhere the flake doesn't stick, the base color is going to help to hide where the missing flake might be. Similar to the gray, waiting another hour and then pulling the tape around the blue. And then waiting another 2 hours to vacuum the flake from that coat. Following that is another panel around that center gray tile. In this case, it was a mixture of a couple different colors, not a uniform monotone color, but actually a mixture of different colored flakes. The color below it being a gray, clear polyaspartic was chosen so that if there were any missing pieces, the different color of flake is so busy that the area below is probably not going to detract from the flake. And in this case, it really didn't. It's similar to the previous applications. Tape is applied. Polyaspartic is applied. Flake is broadcast into it. It's allowed to cure long enough to pull the tape. And then a couple hours later, it's vacuumed. With 2 more colors to go, it's just going to be a repeat process of the last 3 steps. Taping off where necessary, applying the polyaspartic, broadcasting the flake into the wet polyaspartic. Wait an hour, pull the tape, 2 more hours, vacuum. For the last color, which is in this case the way that the camera is oriented, is going to be the top of the tiles. It's a repeat of the previous processes, but now there's no need to use a tape. With this last step done, because the next step is going to be scraping and aggressive vacuuming, the work is pretty much finished for at least the next 6 hours. Now that the floor is cured enough that it can be aggressively scraped and vacuumed, this is going to be the point in the process where it's very important to remove all the loose flake that can be. On a one-color flake floor, this wouldn't be a big deal because it's the same flake that's been moved around and then deposited in another area of the floor. All the flake is the same, so it doesn't matter. Extra attention has to be paid to removing all loose flake that possibly can be. Because if any loose flake is moved, it's going to land in a different color that when sealed, it's going to be permanently fixed there, and it's probably going to show inside that other color. On this particular floor, to give an idea of labor to make sure that all the loose flake has been removed, it was scraped 3 times, it was vacuumed twice by wand, and then hand vacuumed to be sure to remove all the loose flake. Even after all this effort, there were still a couple loose chips that did get moved in the final coat that were sealed into as loose flakes that, of course, are going to stand out based on whatever color they happen to land in. Once all the loose flake has been removed completely, it's time for the Polyaspartic Top Coat. The top coat is a clear polyaspartic, and it's going to be installed at 100 square feet per gallon or plus or minus 16 mils. A flexible squeegee with medium pressure is used to gauge out the material at the expected rate. There was an extra 10% of material added to the mix because of any undulations in the floor where the coverage might be a little more or a little less based on the nature of the floor. The other reason is because when it's time to back roll the floor to take out any squeegee marks and help to break the surface tension of the polyaspartic, extra material is going to be needed to load that roller. The roller, once loaded with that excess material, is then lightly rolled across the floor, overlapping 10 to 15% per roll. The main goal here is to help take away any ridges left by the squeegee and also to break that surface tension. Once the back rolling is complete, the floor is going to be left to cure for at least 2 days before it can receive full traffic. With regard to the labor to produce the floor, it's obviously going to take longer than a single color flake floor. Things to consider before attempting a floor like this is that for each color there's going to be taping and then minimum cure times until they can be vacuumed, and then obviously the next color installed that follows that one. Each time that's done, it's going to add time. The other issue is the final cleaning, the final vacuuming of the loose flake. This floor, 150 square foot, took over an hour and a half to vacuum completely. And even then, some loose flakes did remain. All in all, it was a fun floor to do. I learned a lot. I learned about color. I learned about taping. I learned about laying out a grid pattern. And the results are fantastic. I'm surprised myself at the way that it looks based on the different colors and how they appear to be lit from different angles. I had a lot of help on it from someone who is definitely more expert when it comes to color than I am. But the installation process was really not that difficult. It was time consuming, but it really wasn't too technical. Appreciate very much you watching. If you like what you watch, please drop a like below. Any questions or comments, please leave those below as well. Thanks very much and have a great day.